Hi everyone, Alex here. Konnichiwa minasan, Alex this. So today I would like to talk a little bit about AI. Now I know everybody and their dog or their pet goldfish is talking about AI right now, and depending on where you sit, maybe you have very strong emotions about it. I know that artists in particular have taken a strong stance against it, while there are many people who are not as artistic or people in some other fields who are using AI to do things that they couldn't do otherwise and feel like that's a boon to them. In particular, some scientific fields, people are making discoveries, and maybe mathematics also. There are some discoveries that are being made through AI, and even while that's true, some mathematicians have signed recently like some sort of statement that AI needs to be looked over carefully because it could still make mistakes or this and that. But I'm more interested in the artistic side of things. I think that there's actually, there's really two sides that come out of this right now, and they're both like pretty strongly held, I think. But there are some people in the middle, and I think the middle is really what's going to happen. And the two sides are that AI is the future and that everything's going to be AI and that we're going to be able to create things instantly just exactly as we want, and we won't need for artists anymore. And the other side is the artistic side, the artists who feel that AI is just slop, which is a word that's kind of annoyingly overused, but I understand it because it's mass produced and it's just like random kind of hot garbage stuff. But the artists on the other side say that AI will never be able to produce the level of work that a true artist can, because artists care about human connections and there's human expression that goes into it, and AI just can't understand that. Now, I think the artistic side is a little bit disingenuous because right now, AI, people who use AI to make art or write or everything, are able to make inroads into the market and somewhat confuse or basically pretend that their work is the work of human artists. So if it's true that in the market people are falling for this AI art, that does mean that the AI is kind of good enough to compete with humans. I mean, just as a de facto situation there, that you, if the market accepts it, really, it's that means that people are accepting it. And even if later some artists point out, oh, there's this mistake, there's that mistake, and you can tell, like, if you really look at the details, that only AI makes a mistake, and then people are like, oh no, I can't believe it. It's sort of, it's sort of, it's too little too late. The fact of the matter is that I think artists are worried about AI being used to the extent that it is, because it is kind of good at what it's doing, even though it's stealing from previous artists and previous writers and everything. I think that's the bigger claim, is that it only operates on the data set, on huge data sets of art that has previously existed, and kind of just, melds it together to form new images without really doing anything to, I don't know, to make it more human, I guess. But I think there's a middle road that, or a middle way that kind of says that AI is sort of the future in some respects, but of course there will always be people who seek out human handcrafted works. And I think this is somewhere this is easy to see, is that we have dealt with automation of tasks before, some of which are considered very artistic, such as pottery or basket weaving, or even clothes making, knitting and otherwise. But especially like pottery is a simple example, that in the past there was a time when humans made all the plates, dishes, bowls, glasses, and jugs and everything we made out of ceramic or, um, you know, ivory, I guess. We made it out of different materials. And it took, craftsmen to do this. And it took them a long time to train and be good enough to make those things. And they could be works of art. The problem is that not all of it was works of art. Some of it was just them, they had to churn out a certain amount to make sure that people could use them. But once automation came around and there was the Industrial Revolution and interchangeable parts came around sometime before that too for things like weapons and military, which enabled mass production of things that were of a certain standard and a certain quality and that everybody could use cheaply. Everybody could acquire cheaply. And so it sort of ran out those potters and handcrafted items to the sidelines. Now, that doesn't mean these people all went away. Now you can still do pottery as a hobby or as a trade. If you get really good, you can create things that still show some self-expression. I just think there's far fewer of those people than there were when people had to do it for everyone. Like everyone needed these things. And I think that AI might do that for art, where there is the sort of movies, music, and books that people consume right now regularly are going to be sort of homogenized, made uniform, and AI will become good enough at writing nearly good enough acceptable levels of quality for people to just consume in the background while as like stress relief or other things. They won't make the best art ever, they won't make the best music ever, but how many times do you listen to music just so you have something on in the background while you do your own work, like say at the computer or whatever you happen to be doing? You just want some background noise, and like any sort of good music would work. Well, AI will probably be able to make music that's about good enough for you to just ignore as background music. And I think that will take the place of like, who knows, 60%, maybe 80% of music that you listen to, and you only seek out like a smaller percentage. And in that case, you will have to be very, precise about what you're interested in. And I'm just surprised I don't see more people saying that. There are people who say like, oh, everything's gone, we're all going to be gone. There are artists who say like, oh, now that AI is taking over this, it's just the end, that people are just going to use this, and no one's going to want any human-made things anymore. And there are other artists who say like, no one, they'll just declare, they'll aver that no, AI will never be good enough to replace humans at these tasks because it's just not good enough. It doesn't understand things. But I think that it will get better at various things, and even like translation, for example. I'm a translator, and I've been a translator for 15 years or so, and a lot of work I do is like looking up words in a dictionary, which are things that can be automated away. I mean, I don't look up the words in the dictionary. I know the words, so like most of the time I'm just typing what I read into a different language. But when you don't understand certain things, you have to look up new words. And AI is just going to be able to do that automatically. The words are online. The harder part is complex grammar or references or internal references and things like that. And some interpretation. Yeah, I mean, I don't do artistic translation. I do mostly business translation and some chemistry, and I used to do patent translation, and there's a high degree of technicality that's required for that, and you need to be very accurate, and I don't think AI is there yet. But to the extent that you can explain something in words is the extent that a computer algorithm will eventually be able to accomplish if it has enough data for it, I think. So once you get to the point where you're like, I want artwork that has this sort of feel with this sort of metaphor, this sort of character, and some sort of plot that goes like this or that, AI will be able to generate something that is along those lines, and really, um, the flaws will just be sort of in the prompting. And that's another thing. Prompting, people think that it's not very difficult, and it isn't if you're not, particular about what you want to produce. But I don't do AI generation much at all, so I don't really know how it goes. But the idea is sort of, you have to give it some credence that there might be some different ways of wording your requests that alter the way the models work, and how you iterate on that process to get things closer and closer to what you envision in your mind. And that, in some sense, is a little bit like what artists do. Not entirely. Obviously, artists use their skills to make things appear on page, and that is a huge part of the trade or craftsmanship, and that's something that I work on myself, and I think is very important. But at the same time, you have to think there are people who have big ideas, and they understand a larger scale of things. They just don't know how to do the little steps that get them there, and AI will basically bridge that gap for them. So maybe too fast. Maybe it'll be not very, like right now, it's a big gap, between what they want to see happening and what they're actually capable of using. But the closer that humans and AI get to working together, that gap shrinks. And then what will ultimately probably be the ideal is when AI and humans can do the whole range of their own tasks. They can essentially double for themselves, and then they work in collaboration to bounce ideas off of one another in a way that's fast enough that they could produce something better than either one alone. And I think that unfortunately may be the future. Whether or not it's good or I really don't know. But I do think that there is that. I do think. Let's see how I want to say this. You either see people who I think are a little bit artistic, who are saying AI just won't replace humans ever. And I think they're just stating that to feel better about themselves, and maybe they're kind of missing out on what's going on where the rubber meets the road, that the free market is going to sort of gradually replace a lot of artists and coders and stuff too. I think in technical fields too, that it's not ideal, but some junior level coders might be replaced. I don't know. I don't work in that field, but I think that the fact of the matter is, it might be able to start replacing people like translators also in my field, and musicians and artists, and that there's not an easy way to combat that, except for saying that it should be regulated better, or it's damaging the environment, or it's stealing from previous artists, and that there's all sorts of other ethical problems with it. That's a road people can go down. But as far as the power of what it can do, I think it's already showing that it's able to do more than we expected. And I think that it's sort of a reaction against that people are saying it'll never replace humans. We're just like, no, we'll always be something valuable. However, I don't think that we're going to see the complete dominance of AI taking over everything, because then it is true that like people will just be bored, I think, with the things they can create themselves. And maybe it'll be send this AI over to that AI so this your AI slop that you make, you send it to another person who sends you their AI slop, and you interact that way. Or but then maybe you have AI reading it to you or giving you bullet points, and you're not really paying attention or whatever, and it gets a little bit kind of haywire that way. But I just wanted to put my thoughts down on this on camera and see how it goes. So it's been a little bit of a longer video, and hopefully I made some interesting points there. I just feel that there is a perspective that hasn't been stated much, which is that AI will probably replace a certain number of people in different fields, but there is a higher end that humans will always be able to uh, exist in as, you know, as high end, tailor made craft or work. But then again, like I do not use AI for making any works of art. I don't use it for writing assistance. I don't use it for much of anything. Sometimes I have bounced ideas off of it for making a web page so that it could code that for me, because I used to code a little bit, but then don't. But anyway, this has been a long video. Just wanted to get my thoughts down, and thank you all for watching. If you liked or didn't like, just put the like up anyway and comment something down below. I will be sure to read those comments and try to cover them in whatever way that I can. And subscribe if you're interested. I do mostly music. I do English covers of Japanese songs, but I'm doing other things now with videos and seeing if that that is interesting to people. And we'll be testing various things like that. Okay, that's it. See you everyone. ではまたね。